Everybody, I'm going to tell you about my fire effect, and I decided to do it as a video instead, so hopefully that's of use and not inconvenient to watch. So there's two parts to it. There is the flame, and then there is the wreckage as well, those embers, and it's pretty simple. I am subscribed to Photoshop CC or Creative Cloud, so I have access to a bunch of Kyle Webster brushes, which is how I stumbled upon this flame one. But honestly, the shape of the brush is maybe the least of it. You can draw the fire shapes yourself. It simplifies it a little bit, but the majority of it is where to apply what in terms of layer effects. So let's take a closer look. Let me see if I can do this without digging into too much. Let me turn some of these upper layers off. You can see that I've got the word balloons and some of this stuff to sweeten the colors for the screen. I'm going to turn the panels off. I'm going to turn the texture off. Now, what are these guys? I don't know. These might be glow effects. I think this is one of them. Let's check it out. Okay, that's just embers. I'll show you that too. Let's take a look at this. That's also glow. Okay, there's no way I can do this without tucking into one of these. So let's take a look. I will show you the brush that I use too. Let me put this on a darker background so that you can see it. Okay, so I'm going to start a new layer just so you can see what I'm doing. So let me choose a flamey color. Let's go for something in this family, right? Now the brush I'm using, I modified one of Kyle's brushes, which is in his, which family is it in? Is it in Concept? It's in his Concept Art pack. And there's a zillion of them, but most of them I find, I mean, they're stylistically not great for my purposes anyway. But there are some here that are specifically for drawing smoke. And the only thing that's neat about that is that they seem to have 2 points that orbit each other. So that's useful for getting those little wisps. But for your purposes, that's how I drew some of these. But for your purposes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a plain old brush so you can see that it works with any old thing. So here, I'm just going to draw some fire shapes, right? That's not too fancy. Who cares? That's not interesting at all. Not a bit. I'm going to fill it in. Again, I got some alias problems, but that's all right. That never kill anybody. All right, so here's some fire shapes, which you may enjoy. Now here's where what we're talking about down here. Here's a layer with the fire on it. Let's go to the effects and look what I've done. I've applied an outer glow, linear dodge, about 60% of this color, right? This much deeper, like a hazard orange, like a safety cone orange. And since it's linear dodge, you have to pay attention to the background because since this is nighttime, I wasn't worried. This is just going to be that ambient red sky color when there's a fire. You know, as one does, set fires, you know, on your own and see what the color of the sky is, and that'll help your art, that'll help your practice. And then here's the other little tidbit I thought was interesting. So I did an inner shadow as well. It's set to lighten. And let me go ahead and apply, I'll show you that in a second. Let me go ahead and copy this layer style, paste it onto the one that I just drew. And all that did, the inner shadow, you can see, it just gives it a little bed. And I think the cool thing here, you can see I'm doing the opposite of, so I mean, this is a shadow, but it's set to lighten. So it's not casting a shadow, it's casting a brightness. You can see that just gives it some texture. And I can actually go ahead and put some holes in it too. And that'll do that. That'll give it some more texture. I'm just punching holes in it with a soft with an aliased eraser or an anti-aliased eraser. Anyway, so you can get some neato textures going on there. And you'll see that the outer glow is very helpful for drawing small bits like the embers if I want to make real tiny ones floating up into the sky, right? And there's nothing special about this brush that I'm using here. The glow does all the work. So that's part one. That's part one of that fire glow. Now let's take a look at what this is. Okay, so this is the junk in the fire. Similar stuff going on here. Again, let me put it on a dark background so you can see what I'm doing. I should have prepared this ahead of time. So now imagine that there's going to be a fire visible all around this or behind this layer. So again, I'm doing the same thing. I've got a drop shadow. Let's take a look at this effects layer. I have a drop shadow, which is, this time it's set to normal, but again, it's brightness, and I'm trying to indicate like the top of it is actually a blaze, and you can maneuver that around to your taste. But I've also got an inner glow, which is set to color burn, this dirty green color, and it's source at the center. So if I do it at the edge, you'll see that the edges now have that greenness on them, and that's not really what things on fire look like. They're going to be all embery on the outside, so I'm going to set that to this, right? So you can see those little sizzling, cooking embers in there. And then in addition to this, I don't remember what color this is, what color these lines are, but the color overlay, I just set it to this kind of a dirty orange brown. See, actually, it doesn't look too bad even at a lower opacity like that. That's like a contrast of a non-light emitting object inside of a fire. Let's see, what other tricks are there? I think that was basically it. And I think what really helped us sell this scene is the embers floating, which you can do at your leisure. But the thing I liked about this technique, especially with that inner shadow, for items like for elements like this flame in here, let me see, is that if I turn off the inner shadow, well, you can't really see it in this one. Oh, it's probably because I've got that glow all over it. And by that I mean an additional layer on top that's got glow. Anywhere I want it to be more, to be brighter, I've got another layer on top with color dodge, and then I'm just throwing more of that orange yellow on top of it and blurring it a lot so that it looks like a glow. But what I liked about it was, depending on what your distance is set at for that inner shadow, it actually will give it a little more texture and a little more depth, a little more. It's if you do it wrong, like if you have the elements too close together or they're too distinct, then it won't look random. It'll look like it's just a duplicate. But in this case, it feels pretty good to me. I'm trying to figure out where I am. Oh, I was trying a couple other tricks to see if I could make that work, but I preferred it with the color overlay. Anyway, there you go. It's pretty straightforward. I will post a PSD at some point just so that you can flip through it, and I'll do a whole one. It's not just so you can look at flame. I just would love for you to see my process, and it's a terrible practice. I barely use folders, and of course at some point I'm just creating new layers. Oh, here's an interesting thing that I learned that will assist you. I didn't learn this until recently, but if you've got this hot light source, this warm light, then the shadow cast, like let's say right here on Zane's, the side of his head that's not facing the flame directly. The shadow is cool. It's a cold light. So what I did was, let's see what color I'm using for that. I've got this kind of a deep teal, a darker teal color. And then I have this layer set to pin light instead of, what do you got? Multiply. Even that doesn't look too bad, but I wanted it to have like a warmth to it. Vivid light doesn't work. Hard light doesn't. Hard light isn't so bad either. But pin light preserved some of the detail. Anyway, that's my tips and tricks. I hope you liked them, and thank you for being here. Appreciate each and every one of you. Enjoy.